And
Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. Arnie, a happy Sunday morning to you.
It's very happy for me for a couple of reasons. You know, one, that I'm here with you in the studio. The second reason is we're going to have Denny Bedard here, and we're going to talk about all things Grizzly. You know, he is to me, the definitive authority on Griz football. He's sort of the historian. He's the data and record keeper. He does the pre- and post-game shows, as we know. And he really pays attention to the details of the game, which, to me, are very important and maybe in some ways the most important part.
100% agree.
He's like, if he was young now, he'd be in the Moneyball. He'd be one of those Moneyball guys.
He does have a photographic memory.
Yeah, he has a fantastic memory.
Denny is a man that wears many hats, as we know. Pre- and post-game on the Griz football. He does public service or public announcement in basketball. Also works here at KISS. He's a salesman here at KISS and the radio station. But moreover, he's a Missoulian through and through. He's a Montanan. He was born and bred here.
Right. So I'm anxious to hear what he has to say about the Griz now and in the future, and all things sports in Missoula and Montana.
I agree, Arnie. Back after this with our guest, Denny Bedard.
At the YMCA, people are the foundation of who we are and who we have been for nearly 170 years. You are the why. And even though the why may look a little different right now, our commitment to you remains as strong as ever. So stay with us. Stay connected with your why. Stay connected with each other. Reach out to your local why today. And stay with us for a better us.
Go, team, go! Go, team, go!
You don't need to run all over the field fumbling around for all your party beverages. Just huddle up at Lolo Liquor and Wine. The perfect call is a stop at Lolo Liquor and Wine for a huge assortment of liquor, wine, and mixers. That includes a great selection of tasty canned cocktails that don't need mixing. Also, lots of wines in the can. Locally owned Lolo Liquor and Wine. Open Mondays through Saturdays in the Lolo Shopping Center. And visit LoloLiquorandWine.com. Scenic drives to see the changing seasons, hunting trips, holiday travel.
How does your car feel about all that?
Good point. For fast, reliable, honest, and reasonable vehicle checkups and repairs, stop by Brian's Auto First.
Tune-ups, brakes, fluid services, transmissions, stalling out, you name it. Brian's has been taking care of Missoula drivers for over 20 years.
Most smaller jobs can be done same day. And if your check engine light comes on, they do free diagnostics to help pinpoint the problem. No obligation.
Brian's Auto, just off West Broadway in Palmer, behind Gomer's U.S. Diesel, 549-9215.
Every weekend, Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate presents Missoula Real Estate Today on Newstalk KGVO. Diane and her guests provide interesting information about the local housing market, along with industry-related topics and trends. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Saturday mornings from 8 till 8:30, and again Sunday mornings from 10:30 till 11 on Newstalk KGVO, FM 98.3 and AM 1290.
Unused prescription opioid pain medicines can spell trouble. They can spell risk if taken by someone they weren't prescribed for, harm if accidentally taken by a child or pet, or overdose if they're not used as directed. Safely dispose of opioids before they can hurt your family. Find a drug take-back option such as medicine drop boxes. You may find these in your community at local pharmacies or police stations. Visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
The Grizzly Football Coaches Show plays here. The Bobby Hauk Show, Wednesday nights from 6:30 till 7:30. Live from the Finn Restaurant inside the Doubletree. On Newstalk KGVO, FM 98.3 and AM 1290. And on your free KGVO mobile app.
Arnie Sherman, we are back. And the first question I'm going to ask you about going to New York is, what's it like being in a city post-COVID or during a pandemic? And what did you observe that maybe you didn't observe the last time you were there?
Well, everybody is paying attention to the pandemic. I mean, I did not go into a restaurant in a month that didn't ask for my vaccination card.
Right.
And my ID. They didn't want just a card. You have 2 pieces of identifying information, or else you couldn't go into a restaurant. If they had sidewalk seating, they let you sit outside. But if you wanted, even Shake Shack at the train station, which is in a big rotunda, wouldn't let you sit down and eat there if you didn't show a vaccination card.
Which trains? Grand Central?
Grand Central.
Wow.
You couldn't eat, you know how the Shake Shack is out in the middle of the rotunda? It's not an enclosed restaurant. It's an open restaurant in the main hall of Grand Central Station.
But they're very strict.
Very strict. Secondly, all public transportation, you have to be masked. So the subways, buses, you have to be masked. Concert. I went to the Eagles concert. I went to the concert
Garden.
And the concert at Central Park, in the Great Lawn.
Sure.
Central Park. 3 checkpoints to show your ID and your vaccination card. You couldn't get in.
So if local Missoulians are complaining about having to wear a mask when they go into Target, that's the least of their issues.
Yes. I mean,
if you were in a city, you would be under much stricter guidelines.
Well, it's a higher concentration of people closer together. They saw the worst of it before. Their hospitals were full. Right. They don't want to see that again. And they're trying to get back to normal. The other big difference is nobody's working in the city. It was a great time to go because there were no lines. There was no, delays in getting into restaurants, into stores, or any of that sort of thing. People are still working from home. And as you know, most of the people that work in Manhattan, in white-collar jobs at least, don't live in Manhattan. They live somewhere else.
So the city has transformed from a commercial hub to a residential and tourist hub.
Well, and the tourists are all domestic because the international tourists can't get in.
Wow. That's a big difference. That's the one thing you could always count on when you're in New York is running into a lot of different tourists from different countries and, partaking and talking. And
but what I saw was, like me, a lot of domestic American tourists coming to New York in the summertime because there was a lot going on. I mean, you have baseball. You have both baseball teams playing, so every day there's a baseball game. There was the big concert on the lawn with all the amazing acts. We'll talk about that. Broadway's not open, but virtually everything else is open. So it's a great time. All the museums are timed entry, so you have to get a ticket ahead of time. So when you go to the Museum of Modern Art or Hayden Planetarium or the Natural History Museum, it's relaxing because it's not packed and jammed on a Saturday.
But you're timed how long you can be there.
No, then you're not timed, but you're timed entry.
You're timed entry, got it.
And they just figure how many people are going to, you're not going to spend 9 hours.
Boy, that would be so much more enjoyable.
It was more enjoyable. I mean, you didn't have to, like they had at the Museum of Modern Art, they had some displays. They had the auto. They had the big auto display there. I forget exactly what they call it. But they have, at the Museum of Modern Art, they had the car exhibit. And that would have been jammed and mobbed. And with timed entry, it was very relaxing. You could move around very easily. It was called Automania.
Automania
and that's what it would normally look like if anybody could walk in. So there were no lines anywhere for anything.
I have to say, the world that you've experienced, even when you were in New York, at this taping, was hit with Hurricane Ida.
Yes.
And you were talking about the subway. Public transit is flooded.
I know. I got out 48 hours ahead of time.
But talk a little bit about that. Like when a natural disaster kind of hits a city like New York, because I had been a part of, certainly a few of those over the years, snowstorms or hurricanes and et cetera. How is a city prepared for something like that?
Well, sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. I do have to say one thing. Coming home through LaGuardia, fastest I've ever gone through the airport. There was nobody there. I mean, people are not. You think about it. There's a lot of people who come in and travel through LaGuardia, coming in from other places around the tri-state area or international tourists that want to then travel to. It took me, I'm not exaggerating, from the time the car dropped me off to the time I was through dropped my luggage off through TSA was under 10 minutes at LaGuardia. That's unheard of.
It's like Missoula.
Yes, just like Missoula. It was just as fast as Missoula. But here was the thing that they weren't prepared for. They had the concert for New York.
Right, in Central Park, on the Great Lawn.
On the Great Lawn. 60,000 people.
Wow.
Clive Davis, who you know,
right,
who's 89 now, 89-year-old Clive Davis was the impresario for putting the show together. And it was the who's who of Clive Davis's world, right? It was, Andre Bocelli and Jennifer Hudson and Carlos Santana and Rob Thomas and Journey and
the Killers,
Earth, Wind and Fire. John Batista, from
Late Show with what's his name, Colbert.
Kane Brown for the country western fans. They did a R&B hip hop rap compendium. All these folks were on the stage at the same time. LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Melly Mel, Reverend Run of Run DMC, Fat Joe, Kenny Babyface Edmonds also, and Lucky Day. All in one. It was just incredible.
His Rolodex.
Yeah, the Rolodex. And then, Barry Manilow came on and it started raining.
His first star on Arista Records. When he made the Arista Records after he left Columbia, that was his first breakthrough.
We didn't get to see the Killers, Paul Simon, Elvis Costello, Patti Smith, or Bruce Springsteen, because they saved the bigger acts, the bigger acts to the end, and we didn't get to see.
But what happened at Central Park?
So here's what happened. Two things. One is it was because of the COVID checks.
Yeah.
They only had 2 entrances for 60,000 people.
Holy mackerel.
I was online for over 2 hours, and the line was a double line from 72nd Street back to 66th, back to 72nd Street. And
You're kidding.
No. And then you had to walk into the park up to 82nd where the Great Lawn is. So it took 2 hours. When the rain started, it was the heaviest 2-hour downpour in the history of Central Park.
This was how many weekends ago? Like 3 weekends?
It was on the 21st.
21st, okay, so 3 weeks
heaviest ago. Until this Ida said. So within 2 weeks, they set 2 records for the heaviest amount of rain ever to fall in New York City. So, and you couldn't bring umbrellas in or any of that stuff into the concert. So it starts pouring, and they announce, as Barry Manilow's singing, Mandy or whatever, they just cut his mic off. Everybody has to leave.
Because there was lightning strikes.
It was lightning, so you got to get out. They didn't open up the whole thing. There was 2 exits again for 60. So it was just torrential rain coming down. And as you know, you're in the middle of Central Park. You can't hide under trees because there's lightning going on.
Yeah.
So you just the only good thing about it is it was 75, 76 degrees. But it was like taking a shower with your clothes on for 45 minutes.
Where did you go when you got out of the park?
Well, the place I was staying for the month was at 59th in Central Park. So I had to walk from 82nd to 59th.
Oh my
gosh. That's a walk in the rain in the I had to twist my money in my wallet. It was so soaked with, literally, it was like a sponge.
What would you say they should do next time if they're going to have something like that in a post-COVID world? More entrances, more checkpoints?
More entrances and exits for sure.
Sure, because they're a disaster.
Because you couldn't get a cab. I mean, it's in a torrential rainstorm. You're in the middle of a park, 60,000 people trying to get out. At 72nd Street, there is a subway stop. So we kind of meandered over that way. But everybody was pouring down like rats into the hull of a ship. So I wasn't going to go down there. Who knows if you got flooded down there in this rain.
So for our listeners, Central Park is surrounded by, the city streets, but there aren't subway stops every 20 blocks, let's say, on either end, on the east side and on the west side. And finding a cab in a torrential downpour is a sport. Good luck.
And even the horse-drawn carriages were full. People grabbed those.
And how about getting cell service to call Uber or something?
Nobody was coming. The interesting thing you mentioned Uber. Let me tell you what's going on in New York with Uber, Lyft, and taxis.
Yes.
This demand pricing. To go to the airport on the day I left, which was at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, 11 a.m. on Tuesday.
Right.
$100 to get to LaGuardia by Uber, $40 by Lyft, Cab was less.
Yeah, $30.
But there's a huge diminution of numbers of cabs on the street in New York because during the COVID pandemic, the height of the pandemic, a lot of the drivers lost their medallions. The medallions for our listeners could cost $500,000 to be licensed to operate a cab in New York. New York has
like a liquor license.
Yeah, it's like Tesla's. There are a lot of Tesla cabs in New York now, along with those new ones they designed. So a lot of them lost their shields, their medallions, and they're not back operating.
Why did they lose them? Because they just
couldn't pay they financed them.
Got it.
They couldn't pay them. They couldn't make their monthly payments on their $500,000 shield and lost them.
So it's so interesting. So you were in Manhattan at a time where there were a number of big events happening, right? I mean, New York is known for big events, but certainly not to the scale of the Central Park concert or big events at the Garden or at the Ball Stadium. But talk to me a little bit about getting around the city, because I know you said you walked a lot.
I walked a lot because the weather was nice.
Right.
And I figure I'm going to eat my way across the city. I might as well walk across the city.
Later. Right.
By the way, at Madison Square Garden, you had to show your COVID. You had to be vaccinated. You could not go to the Eagles concert. Their first concert in 2 years was at Madison Square Garden.
And you went on the 24th?
I went on the 24th. The first one.
August 24th.
Had to be vaccinated. Couldn't get in without a vaccination.
So how was the egress or the entry and exit?
Very easy, very quick.
At the Garden, because that's their business.
Yes, their business. They couldn't. It was nothing out of the ordinary. You had to show it twice. You showed your card twice, and that was it.
And you were assigned an entry point on your ticket.
Yep.
So it's not like you could just wander in from any entry point.
No, they had it very well organized, coming in and going out. And
amazing. And you walked everywhere or took subways?
Took subways. I had a little bit of...
Did you feel safe? Did you feel
totally safe? It was as safe as I ever felt, actually.
What about...
Because it wasn't as crowded as it normally is. You know, I mean, how often can you travel on a subway almost around rush hour where you could sit down on a seat?
Never. You're
all packed in like sardines.
What about all we've been hearing about the crime being up in Manhattan during COVID?
I didn't notice it. I have actually noticed.
You went to a lot of places.
I went to a lot of places.
Where were you? So, I mean, I know you were using kind of Manhattan and Central Park as kind of your home base,
right?
But where did you travel to through either subway or cab or foot?
I went out to. I went to Citi Field in Queens to see the Mets play.
So it was a seven, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a seven.
The seven out there.
Right. I was at Yankee Stadium several times on the 6. I went up to the
4, 5, 6
New York Botanical Gardens in the Bronx.
Okay.
On the way up in the Bronx.
How'd you get there?
I took this. I took the subway down to Grand Central Station and then took the Metro North. Because there's a stop right at the Botanical Gardens.
Did you say you went to Harlem? Did you go?
I went to Harlem 3 times.
So how'd you get there? Subway?
Subway, the 125th.
The one up to 125. How did you? And then did you take any? Did you get into any cabs? And was there any traffic on the city streets?
There was not the normal traffic you normally see. I did take a few cabs. Because let's say it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm done at this club at Minton's on 118th Street in Harlem.
Right.
11 o'clock at night. I'm looking for an Uber. They want $40 or $50, and so walked over to Broadway and hailed a cab. Took 10 minutes, but I got a cab. A guy with his light on.
For our
listeners who are not familiar with New York, the cabs turn their light on, their dome light on, when they're available to be solicited.
It's amazing.
I found the cabs are all, every cab driver, every Uber driver, masked. Every Lyft are all masked.
They probably have to be.
Every worker in every building is masked.
Did the subject of who's vaxxed and who's not vaxxed ever come up with people that you encountered?
On the flight back, I was delayed an hour because there was a family of 6 who wouldn't put their masks on the flight. And so
out of Minnesota or
out of Minneapolis.
Oh my God!
They were flying back here, and they had indicated it was. I don't know how they got on the plane because you couldn't get into the airport without. But they didn't want to wear their mask on the flight and said it was their religious right not to have to wear it. So it turned into a longer conversation, and then they took them off the plane and had to take their luggage off, so we got delayed, an hour on that late flight, coming back. Not in New York. I mean, people want to be vaccinated. There are COVID testing places that are free every 6 blocks in Manhattan.
Is that right?
They're tented, set up on the street, free COVID testing. So people get tested. You can walk into any CVS or Walgreens or Duane Reade and get a vaccination shot.
Did you notice it being in? I mean, you were in Manhattan in a really kind of a lot of things going on. Now that I'm looking back, Cuomo actually resigned while you were there.
Yeah, Cuomo resigned.
What were the repercussions of that? Like,
it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to construction workers, they're saying, "Hey, he's an Italian guy. He's single. Guys use their hands in New York, right? Touch the woman on her shoulder. I mean, what's the big deal? He's a good governor. You heard that. Right. And then, of course, you hear more of a
unions loved him.
Yeah, you hear more of a woke kind of thing. He was abused. Here's a guy who, is an advocate for, women's rights and, had I don't know how many women ultimately.
Making his way with others, right?
Right, making his way with others. But that was the discussion about him. It was split among different groups. But it wasn't all men versus women. There were some women I talked with. I said, what do you think? And they said,
higher tolerance for that.
Right. I mean, here's and I'm not defending, but here's the defense argument. He's a 60-year-old Italian guy who's single.
Right.
He's been in public life his whole life.
Right.
All the people he knows are in government. In this day and age, if you want to date somebody,
right,
how do you know if they want to date you?
Right.
And there's a thing that I don't know if it's lost on, but it used to be you flirt.
Right.
So does flirting have parameters? I mean, if you kiss somebody on the cheek, if you hug somebody.
Right.
Now, the counter-argument is these were people that worked for the government, and he works for the government. But there's no law in New York that says government employees can't date.
Is that true?
Yeah, you can date. There's no... And he's not married. He's single at this point, right? So, was he a little handsy? Was he... I mean...
Well, he's in a position of authority.
He's in a position of authority.
So the optics are terrible.
The optics are horrible. But he never, he never sexually assaulted any of these.
Right.
And he made them feel uncomfortable. He flirted. I would say in a New York big city, he was flirting and he maybe went too far, trying to figure out if these women were interested in him, like any single guy would do.
But what's also interesting is that there seemed to be a lot of resentment towards him for other things that he did as a leader, and this was kind of a way to...
Yeah, but he was a bully. He's a bully politician.
Right, that's politics.
And he's a tough guy politician.
Right.
And
so you have to look at all the angles.
So, I'm not... You're
not condoning,
I'm not condoning. I'm just saying what people were saying in the conversation, because it was on the news every night, practically. Most of the news was very critical. There was nobody on the news supporting him.
Right.
But when you talk to people, in restaurants, in cabs, and sitting next to you at a concert, and you say, "What do you think?" And I talked to lawyers, I talked to a doctor, I talked professional people and working people. It was a broad range. So people said, "Give the guy,"
I think it's hard for people to even think about it this way because people consider New York to be a very left-leaning, liberal kind of town and city and area, but that don't confuse that with being woke. Because that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Right.
Right. And then you're confused about the male-female dating politics. I mean, you have kids that are, it's a different dating world. They have groups more than people pairing off. When I went to college, you used to pin a girl and you'd be with one girl. And,
You're steady.
You're steady. And if you were looking to find somebody to date, if you were a single guy, you would flirt. And people flirt a different way. People were obnoxious flirters, right? Everybody had a line at a bar, right? Now, I understand it's the governor, right? And it's the governor's line.
Right, that's right.
And he's also Italian, which are, Italians, big city Italians are very tactile in the way they interact with you. Because most of the Italians I know,
it's a way of communicating. It's a way of communicating. We always talk about body language and facial expressions, kind of lost in, when you're doing everything virtually.
Right.
But when you're in front of somebody, it's a different way of communicating.
Right. Then you had, at the concert for New York, de Blasio stood up and they booed him for 5 minutes. The mayor of New York.
He's hated.
And
but they still vote him in.
He's completely woke, right? I mean, he's the most woke, mayor that you could possibly have. And they're booing him. And they're just booing him.
Mayor de Blasio, right, and this is his last term. What's the thinking on Eric Adams and that whole, he's obviously won the primary and now he's going to run again. Does he even have is there a Republican?
There is a Republican, and there's also Curtis Sliwa.
Oh my God! From the whatchamacallit,
the
Guardian Angels.
He was out there shaking people's hands. I shook hands with Curtis
at the concert.
Outside of the concert, he was pressing the flesh.
He and Ron Kuby, the fabled liberal attorney, used to have a radio show on WABC.
Yeah.
For many, many, many years.
He looks a lot old. He's wearing a suit. He looks different than in his early days of being a guardian angel. But there's some competition, but I don't think it's going to be serious.
So Arnie, let's pivot for a second. So we're talking about concerts and music and the city. I know your beloved Yankees played. You saw them how many times?
I saw them 3 times.
What was it like seeing your team?
Well, being at Yankee Stadium is always. One time I went with somebody who had never been to Yankee Stadium before.
Right.
So I took them out to Monument Park.
Right.
And they saw, it's different. I mean, it's even different than the Mets. You go to Citi Field, it's a nice field.
Beautiful.
It doesn't feel like Yankee Stadium.
Right.
They don't have a Monument Park.
Right.
They don't have statues to their gods. They put a 5-minute video on at the beginning of the game.
Sure.
That talks about, Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden and some of the...
Their heritage is not as deep.
And Tom Sweet. They have some good people, When you get off the train and walk into Citi Field, it's called Seaver Way for Tom Seaver.
Sure.
One of the greatest ball players in, history. But it was good being at a game. The irony is, at the ballpark, they don't check for COVID.
Really?
They didn't check any of the times I went.
Masks, though, are required.
No.
What?
No.
You're kidding. Is that,
baseball
an MLB
worked out some kind of weird deal. No masks required. But I can tell you, there's no sold-out crowds.
So the crowds stadiums are 3/4 full?
Yeah, 3/4.
That's even a lot. Half. Well, the NFL's the NBA's the exact opposite. You have to have a mask when you're a spectator.
Yeah, well, not there.
Or if you're on the bench. Nothing on the bench either?
On the Eagles, nope. On the Eagles concert, which was fantastic, you had to be vaccinated to get in, so the people weren't wearing masks. And I do have to say, you're a music guy. I know you're salivating at all the people I mentioned, the Concert for America, but the Eagles concert, to me, was extraordinary because they're in their 70s, almost all of them, except for Glenn Fry's son, Deacon Fry, who's 28. And they didn't have any backup singers. Wow. And their harmony was as tight as it's ever been. They came out and did the whole Hotel California album from the start to the end.
Wow.
Took a break. And then as they're taking the break, Don Henley says, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to sing everything else we know. And it went on for 4 hours.
Are you kidding?
It's a 4-hour concert. The best line of the night was Joe Walsh, great Joe Walsh from the James Gang.
From New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey guy, James Gang, and Joe Walsh and Barnstorming. And, now, since 75, he's been also performing with the Eagles. And Walsh said, I have to tell, he's a little quirky anyways, he said, it was a lot more fun being in my 20s in the 70s than being in my 70s in the 20s. Which I think was a great line. But they did everything. They did some of their own private stuff. I mean, he did all of his Life in the Fast Lane. And
was the crowd seated?
Seated.
How comfortable was that? Weren't you comfortable?
Yeah, I was comfortable. Well, everybody
air conditioned,
comfortable. Everybody on the floor, which is stood up almost the whole time.
That's why I said sit in the seats.
Yeah, the seats were great.
How was the food at the Garden? Did you eat?
No, I didn't eat the
Did
garden.
you eat in Koreatown beforehand?
No. I ate near where we were.
Okay.
And then, but the food I had was amazing. Actually, you're going to find this shocking. The best pastrami I had, and I had pastrami 5 times, of course, was at Citi Field.
You're kidding.
They make their own pastrami there, and they thick cut it, and it was the most flavorful. I hate to say it, more than Second Avenue Deli, more than Katz's, more than the food trucks.
Who presented that? Who prepared it though? Was there a brand?
No, it's in the club upstairs.
Okay,
and there's just a whole side of pastrami, and they sliced it very thick. And I almost couldn't eat one sandwich. That's how big a sandwich it was.
Wait a minute. And for everybody, it's kind of gauche to leave with a to-go box from a ball game.
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
And, it was not much money. It was $14.50.
What?
Yeah, it was much. It was less than any of the delis. But I do have to say, as
Did you have a black cherry
food aficionado, I had just a Diet Coke. But as a food aficionado, it was the best pastrami. But I ate.
Do you have any knishes?
I didn't have any knishes there. Every morning I would get up and go up the street to Zabetto's Italian coffee roasters and have a cup of coffee there.
Nice.
Because it was the best coffee I found.
You sat outside?
Sat outside, watch everybody going to and from work. Very few suits. I would count in a morning 3 or 4 people in a suit, which normally at 9 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning, everybody coming out of the F train on 6th Avenue would be in a suit.
Okay.
But I ate at the Modern, which is a Michelin-starred restaurant, for lunch.
Right.
At the Museum of Modern Art. Great. I ate at Loy's.
Right.
Maria. Maria, who we had on our show last week.
Yep.
Her restaurant was right around the corner, and she was just a wonderful hostess.
That's wonderful.
And the food there is terrific, so I ate there 3 times.
Okay.
3 or 4 times. Every time I walk by, that was the way
they pulled you in.
She'd be sitting outside at her table. It would say owner's table, and she'd be sitting there, and she'd say, Arnie, come here. You got to eat something. Owner.
That's how it goes.
I went to ate at the Baylander, which is a decommissioned naval vessel that's parked at 125th Street and the Hudson River.
Wow.
And you sit on there, you can look down the river, see the whole skyline, and
beautiful.
It was a great to be out on a boat.
What kind of food?
Bar food. It was bar food, but it was good bar food.
Got it.
I went to Bemelman's, the famous place at the hotel, the Carlisle Hotel,
right,
where Bobby Short used to play and hold court for many, many years.
And you're not a drinker, so did you have any? Spirits?
I had a Bloody Mary.
Okay,
I had a Bloody Mary, a $25 Bloody Mary. For those of you that are listening, it's not cheap in New York. The other thing you notice is no matter what the bill is, it's almost 9% tax on top of it, so it really kills you.
Oh, we're not used to that, Montana.
We're not used to that. I'd been in Tbilisi. I ate Georgian food, but never outside of the country of Georgia. So I went to the old Tbilisi garden and had dinner.
What'd you have?
Well, I didn't order because there was a guy that worked for me in Russia, a guy named Joe Crowley. And when we were in Russia in 1991, we celebrated his 30th birthday, and I reserved a whole restaurant, and we had a big birthday party for him. And it was his 60th birthday. So I was with him on his 30th birthday. And he invited me to this family gathering, and I went, and they just kept bringing food out.
Oh, that must have been great.
All the dumplings and cheese pies and all. It was the food was incredible there. I also went to a restaurant called Farida, which had Uzbeki food. I've been to Uzbekistan,
right,
and the food wasn't phenomenal when I was there. But this restaurant was great, and I took two friends who work with me in Russia.
Okay.
And we went to this Uzbeki restaurant, and it was shish kebabs and soup dumplings where you bite into them, and then, the soup comes out.
Where is Uzbekistan? Is that adjacent to the Middle East?
No, it was part of the former Soviet Union. So it's not one of the Stan Republic. It's Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe,
but
okay.
It's lower on the continent, so it has it has the Eastern influence. I see the Asian influence. I went to Shanghai 21 in Chinatown with Michelle Huey, one of our former guests.
You didn't tell me about it. How was that?
That was great.
Wait, Shanghai 21?
Yeah, it's her favorite restaurant. So, for our listeners, if you have somebody whose parents were born in Hong Kong and she grew up in New York, as a Chinese kid,
yeah,
and this is her favorite Chinese restaurant, you let her order and you just go with it.
Wow.
And it was terrific.
And
we sat outside.
Wait, what street is it on? 21st and what?
It's Mott Street.
Oh, Mott Street.
It's down in Mott, south of Canal.
Shanghai 21?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
What did you have?
We had some
soup dumplings.
We had soup dumplings. Of course, we had a vegetable dish that was fantastic because they put all the great sauce on it. We had Shanghai noodles with all kinds of pork and stuff. And
minced pork.
And then it was just, everything just tasted terrific.
Did just you and Michelle?
Just Michelle and
Vim and Vigor. Right.
Vim and Vigor, and she has a new company called Shop Dot, and she's working on a whole bunch
right.
She's a great entrepreneur. So
I was Chinatown.
Yeah.
Any Little Italy work there? Did you do any Little Italy?
Well, I went to here's a soprano moment. So Mike Braun, one of our former guests, was there. He went to Museum of Modern Art in MoMA with me, and we went to a few restaurants, and so we went down to. Trying to remember where exactly.
There's Mike Braun from the University of Montana,
right?
The strategy group now.
Right.
He's overseeing.
And so we went. We were down at Grand Central Station, and he wanted to get some Italian food.
Okay.
So there is a restaurant nearby called Rosini's.
Oh, you told me about this.
It's been there since 1946. And so it was rainy out and whatever. We go into Rosini's and we get a table in Rosini's. And right in the corner, there were a big round table with guys that you would recognize instantly. They could have been in the cast of Goodfellas or The Sopranos or Godfather or whatever. And one of the guys with gray hair with a big gold necklace with a big diamond ring sitting in the back. And
pinky ring.
Pinky ring. And he's saying, and I'm not exaggerating, Mike and I are listening because he's talking loud and the restaurant's kind of quiet. You know, that thing we were having a problem with, that thing isn't a problem anymore. So we can do what we need to do because the thing is taken care of.
The thing. And it was for real.
It was for real. He wasn't putting this thing on.
Right. It wasn't like going to a Disney Italian.
And one of the guys in the groups obviously was not originally from New York. He said, I like you. Anytime you come here, you call me and I'll take care of whatever you need. It was one of those they were there when we sat down and they were there when we left.
And their backs were to the wall.
Yeah. So it reminded me of a Chicago experience. Went to Danielle.
Oh, great restaurant.
Yeah, fantastic. Michelin 2-star restaurant. Food was spectacular. It was half the normal price because the dining room was closed and they only had the sidewalk seating, so they charged half of what they normally charge. So that was a great experience. Went to 2nd Avenue Deli on 3rd.
On 3rd and the Upper East Side?
No, it's on 33rd.
It is?
Yeah.
So it's no longer down in the East Village.
No.
There's also one on near the Hospital for Special Surgery.
Then after we got completely soaked coming back we hadn't eaten.
Right.
We started online at 3:15.
Oh, this is the concert for New York.
Yeah. This is now 9 o'clock at night. We hadn't eaten for 6.5 hours out in the rain. So we bolted up the street to a place called Niccolo. Italian place, and the food, and they were just closing, but they saw that we needed help. We were stranded, so they stayed open, and I was there with my friend Rob Scavone, and so he knows Italian food. He picked this place out. That food was terrific as well. Went up to Minton's Jazz Club in Harlem.
Okay,
great little jazz spot. It had closed down because the building had a fire in it and stuff, but it was the original club where Billie Holiday and Miles Davis and all these other people got their start.
What
in
street?
New York. 118th, around 116th Street.
Got it.
So the building got fixed up. Harlem's getting gentrified.
Sure.
And around the corner, they opened up a restaurant called Cecil's, which had barbecue and pork. I mean, a good menu. And an entrepreneur bought the old space, that was the original Mittens,
Right.
and reopened it using the kitchen from Cecil's. So it actually has good food.
That's amazing.
So it's a really great jazz club, and again, that was my third time in Harlem.
The Upper West Side, as you go from there up to Harlem, so is all being gentrified.
Well, if you go to 148th Street in Harlem, the heart of Harlem,
right,
when in 1980 my car broke down in there, and basically a doorman in one of the buildings said, "You better get out of here, son."
Right.
You're not. A white guy in a broken down car is an invitation to be in trouble. There's Starbucks on every corner. I mean, it's totally different now.
Right.
I don't know if that's good or if it's bad or what it really means, because it's getting pricier and pricier to
sure.
And New York attitude. Missoula has sticker shock about real estate prices.
Right.
But let me share a conversation in New York. Two young 20-somethings are looking at a real estate listing. And there's later I took a look at what they were looking at. A 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square foot condo on 51st and 1st Avenue, East Side.
Right.
And the one guy says to the other guy, "That seems to be reasonable. It's only $4 million.
2-bedroom.
2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet." And he said, and the HOA's $2,400 a month.
A month.
And the taxes are $200.
How do you square it?
When I looked at it and added up, it was $4,500 or $4,600 a month in taxes and HOA.
Before you're paying your mortgage.
Before you're paying your mortgage on a $4 million apartment.
If you own property in Manhattan, just wait. My brother is trying to sell his place. I thought he had a buyer. He's got 1,800 square feet on Central Park West.
That's worth a fortune.
It doesn't seem like it's worth much more than that, though. That's what's so interesting.
Well, it depends on how renovated.
Well, 51st and 1st is a prime location.
Yes.
Because it's near Sutton Place. I mean, it's a very big... So you had also called me, without naming company names of supermarkets here in Missoula, you had said that the Whole Foods that you went to in Manhattan was priced better than places around town.
Yes, I was shocked.
Give us an example.
I'll give you some examples, because I was living there for a month, so I didn't go out every single night. I mean, I'd be calling you, send me money.
Right.
Because, New York's a funny place. It's a weird combination. You can go out and have, egg and bacon on a roll for $3 with a cup of coffee.
Right.
Or in the building I was staying, was connected to the JW Marriott, their morning breakfast is $41. So you can either have the $30 or $41.
Right.
You can go get, there are 20 places that sell a slice of pizza for 99 cents.
Right. Not $5.
Right. Or you can go to the Modern and spend $100 for lunch.
Right, sure.
So it's all over the place. So I went into right 2 blocks away where you used to work.
Mm-hmm.
At the Columbus Circle and the Time Warner building.
Where our headquarters were.
Yeah, where your headquarters were in the old days. They have a lower level, and they have the whole basement of the whole building is an enormous Whole Foods. And I was told by somebody that the prices got more competitive after Amazon bought them. They took their prices down.
That's true, right.
Because it used to be called Whole Paycheck.
Right.
And I went in there, and so here are the examples. A organic roasted chicken already cooked, $7.99.
Wow.
Not the Costco. This is organic roasted.
Right. That's fantastic.
The cheese, an 8-ounce pack of cheese, like Swiss cheese or American cheese, their brand, which is called 365.
Right.
$3.99.
Wow. This is news, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. The prepared salad bar, which has 5 different everything.
And it's open, too, now.
Open. Yeah.
Okay. No worries.
It's $10 a pound. Yeah, which is not bad.
Not bad.
I try to limit it to a pound of whatever I got.
It's so easy to go through.
Most of their prepared foods were equivalent or less than the good food store here in price. This is in the prime piece of real estate. You're right in the heart of New York City. They can charge anything there. Their flowers, a bouquet of flowers was $14, a big bouquet of flowers.
So sounds like they're faced with, if there's not a commercial workforce in Manhattan who normally would go there for lunch, they're just relying on residential and tourism.
Right. They compete with the Agostinos and then Griz. What's it?
Gristedes.
Gristedes.
Right.
I went into all of them, and they were more expensive than Whole Food.
Really?
The normal grocery store chains in Manhattan.
Well, and they cater more to a resident versus where you were. That's a whole office building that's on top of that.
Right,
place.
but there's also apartments all
there
around.
Are, and there's a Mandarin. How about, that's amazing, actually.
Yeah, I was just stunned. I mean, across the board, a dozen eggs like Jerry and whatever that you buy here for $5.98 was $4.98.
So less,
slightly less. If you buy the organic, special brand, they had about 20 different. They have 20 different brands.
So let me ask you this question, because around here, the phenomena of drive-through, of using a drive-through to pick stuff up, is really so popular and has been, but really it's exploded since COVID. What's the equivalent of the drive-through in the city? Is it order in advance and pick up at the window, or?
Well, it's two. They'll deliver. Everybody. I mean,
talk about like Seamless,
Grubhub's, Chowhound, Lyft. They're all diversified. Lyft now is renting cars in New York.
Oh my God!
You can rent a car from
like Turo does, right?
Yeah. So if you want to pick up from, there's Amazon stores there, where you can get anything within 2 hours.
Amazing.
And Whole Foods, you can order online digitally, and they have it ready. They have a refrigerated room. It reminds me of a morgue. You open up your refrigerated container, and you take your bags of grocery that they've or all these delivery services. I mean,
convenient.
You can tell how many there are because there are places like Starbucks where you can get Wi-Fi, and there's like 40 guys on bicycles there waiting for their next delivery. Getting their next lead so they can bicycle off and load up and deliver. So
convenience is on hyperdrive.
Not only is it on hyperdrive, but almost everybody I talk to in New York says, "Why are you walking over there? They just deliver it." Everybody is now switched into a mindset that they, and I like to see what I'm buying.
Sure.
Right? I want to squeeze the peaches.
Right. You want to see. What other, all right, so convenience, food, sports, music, museums, and walking at least 5 miles a day, you think?
Almost every day except when it was pouring rain, or a couple of days my Achilles was really bothering me, so I didn't walk. But I walked every single day, so at least some distance. Most of the time, it was 2.5 miles in one direction, 2.5 miles back. I do have to say there's a app called Fever, and they're putting on these very unusual concerts. So, for example, we went down above Paragon Sports down on Broadway, way down by in
the 20s.
Yeah, 6th floor of the building. They have this big open space, and they're doing a Miles Davis Jazz Quintet is performing.
Oh, cool.
And they got all these candles, on the floor.
Pop-up things.
Pop-up things all over the place. All different kinds of pop-up things. Which are fun because Broadway doesn't open till October.
So now it's October.
Yeah.
You thought, so weren't
they were in rehearsals and stuff, but it's not till October till they open. But all the music is going on. There's a concert for everything. I could have gone out to, Jones Beach and seen,
there's so much
Hall
music.
& Oates, and I mean, everybody you can think of, 4 or 5 days after Guns N' Roses was here, they're in New York.
So between Maria's Place, Whole Foods, were there any other go-to places, and the coffee place, the morning coffee place?
Yeah, 2 other go-to places that we've been walking distance. One is Tang Pavilion for Chinese. Great orange beef.
Right. Deliver,
but I went there because it's only 3
And what's it like receiving a Chinese meal from a place like that versus anywhere else?
Well, everybody in there is Chinese.
But it also, this is a difference. It smells
a different
good.
Food.
Tastes amazing. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear the rest of Arnie's trip to New York. And also, a question for Arnie is, what did he leave for the next visit? Back after this.
The latest on Grizzly football with the head coach every Wednesday. It's the Grizzly Football Coaches Show, live from Finn inside the Doubletree Hotel. Head coach Bobby Hauk joins the voice of the Grizz, Riley Corcoran, to recap the last game and look ahead to the next opponent. Join us live at Finn inside the Doubletree, but if you can't make it, you can catch it on the radio. The Grizzly Football Coaches Show, 6:30 to 7:30 Wednesday evenings on Newstalk, KGVO, FM 98.3 and AM 1290, and in Hamilton on 1240 KLYQ. Soon, the fall colors will be changing to a beautiful Kubota orange. Big Sky Kubota invites you to move up to a Kubota compact or higher horsepower tractor, along with Kubota RTVs, skid steers, excavators, track loaders, and Land Pride implements and attachments. Special finance offer. See dealer for details. Outstanding parts and service departments, too. Work with John and Ben, the local Kubota guys, at Big Sky Kubota, 3 miles west of the Missoula Airport on Highway 10, and at BigSkyKubota.com. Think orange.
Are you turning 65 soon, or have already passed that milestone? When you work with an independent insurance agent, you should pick your insurance plan that fits your needs. This is Cody Steele. For 21 years, Cody Steele Agency has been specializing in your secondary coverage to Medicare for Western Montanans. Representing 23 companies allows me to provide you with many plans and coverage that you may be looking for. And that includes life insurance and fixed annuities. Find out and set up an appointment with me today, CodySteeleAgency.com. That's Steele with an E on the end. And let me help you choose the best plan for your golden years.
Young or old, black or white, or anything in between. From employees to entrepreneurs, doctors to detectives, some things define us and set us apart. But there's one thing that binds us. Before anything, we are one thing. Born to be Americans, proud to be.
A few years ago, Steve Fairchild